Embarrassed in the Dome by Georgetown, a second straight loss at the hands of Marquette, and the Louisville Cardinals are next. Welcome to another edition of the Upstate Orange Podcast. It's Thursday, February 28th, 2013, and we're coming at you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. I'm Jim Sinacropi, and I'm joined in studio by my co-host, Matt Verke.
Hey, Jim.
And we got Brad Connor coming on a little bit later via telephone in Cincinnati. But tonight we got John Wallace on the line holding number 44, Syracuse legend. We're going to talk to him right off the bat. Then we're going to recap some of the games this week, look ahead to Louisville. We got some great Syracuse trivia, and we'll take a quick look at all the happenings around the Big East and the country. The Upstate Orange Podcast is brought to you by Madej Maris and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. If you've been injured and deserve compensation, call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. And also by Generations Bank, generations of service for over 140 years. Visit them online at mygenbank.com and check out their new mobile banking app. And Newark Pilots Baseball season ticket package is now available for the 2013 season at Colburn Park. Visit newarkpilots.com for more information. So without further ado, he's one of only 3 Syracuse Orangemen to score 2,000 points and pull down 1,000 rebounds in their career. I'd like to welcome via telephone number 44, John Wallace, to the show. Thanks for joining us tonight, John.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it, my man.
We're really excited, obviously, to have you on, one of the all-time great Orange men. I still call them the Orange Men. And you've played some basketball with our co-host here, Matt Verke, back in the old Section 5 days.
Yeah, Matt and I played on the Empire State team together, played a little AAU ball together. Matt's one of the top 5 shooters I've ever played with. You know, obviously number 1 to me will always be Allen Houston. But, you know, right after that it's Matt Verke and my boy Jeff Murphy and a couple other guys I played with in the NBA. But, you know, for guys who I just would knock down shooters, Matt Verke is definitely on that list.
Hey, thanks, John.
How about that? Allen Houston, Matt Verke. There you go, Verke.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's got to make you feel good. Now, you guys both won state titles in Section 5 in 1992 as seniors. Which
yeah, we're both down in Glens Falls just tearing it up. You know, I remember going to his game, checking out, and actually trying to go out doing, but he was scoring a lot of points. You know, Verke was dropping a lot of buckets in high school.
Yeah, and that was the, you know, obviously a great time in both our careers, and really I thought a great time for Section 5. You know, that year we won the A title with you guys, and we won
Greece
C
Athena,
in
Minders,
and we won the class Section 5. Notre Dame Batavia won the D title, and you know, I always think of our class, that class of '92, as a, you know, one of the best that was ever in Section 5.
Best, man. You don't have to be humble. Best class ever in Rochester. We know that.
Yeah, I would agree with you, no doubt, John. You know, just based on, you know, you alone, obviously the best player ever come out of Rochester. And then, you know, a lot of guys went on to great things. And you talk about like a Royal Hagens, who, you know, as a high school player was really, you know, ahead of his time a little bit.
Oh man, yeah. But we had like 9 or 10 guys that went D1 that year.
Yep.
You know, Nigley, Alan Tomedy. Like, I mean, just so many guys went D1 that year.
Yeah, it was a great year, and you know, it's still the loss in Empires to New York City still haunts me a little bit, but
O'Brien with the 2 turnovers in the backcourt, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, and I still gotta get you that tape too.
By the way, Jim, Verke's been promising me that game for about 4 years. I've yet to get the game. It's one of the games I don't have in my archive. I've been begging him for it. Hopefully, after this show, he'll come through on his word.
I think he's using that tape to hold you hostage, so you have to come in studio next time, John, to get the tape and appear on the show in studio with us.
No problem.
But I got a ton of questions for you tonight, but right off the bat, I got to ask you, what's it been like for you watching Syracuse play their final season in the Big East, knowing that we're going to the ACC next year?
Well, it sucks. It sucks leaving the Big East. I grew up in the Big East. with the Big East, being in the conference for 34 years. And I mean, I get it. It's a football money move, but I don't like it. I'm not going to be comfortable with it. You know, and strictly from a selfish standpoint as a fan, being able to go to all the games that's on the East Coast and, you know, the Big East tournament at the Garden, which is always a big event for, you know, all the alumni. We all get back together every year in New York, and it's always great. But, you know, it's once the ACC and everything's going to be down on the more of the southeast side of things and a lot more traveling. I'm still wondering how it's going to affect our recruiting. You know, it's definitely, you know, it's definitely a big change, but you know, it's not going to change the product we put on the floor. We're still going to be a strong basketball team because that's what we are.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and especially on the fact of the recruiting, because I think that one of the things that draws a lot of these great players to Syracuse and the Big East is the opportunity to play in the Big East tournament every March. It's something special, and I don't think that recruits are going to be too excited about going down to Greensboro or Atlanta as opposed to the Big Apple. So
I heard they're tossing around the idea because, you know, the ACC tournament goes from Atlanta to Greensboro sometimes, and they're tossing around possibly doing it in the Garden. I just don't know how it's going to work out because the ACC tournament and the Big East tournament run, you know, simultaneously. So
yeah, just
they're tossing that idea around. Maybe they'll move the Big East tournament because it won't have as much staying power once, you know, we all, you know, leave it.
I just heard tonight, though, John, this is kind of breaking news, that the Catholic 7 is going to retain the name Big East and that they're inviting Xavier and Butler into the fold. So that's still going to be a good conference that will probably draw well in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, but it won't draw as well as North Carolina, Duke, and Syracuse, and the big boys coming back to the city.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, you know, looking back at your career, John, you're, like I said off the top, you're one of only 3 Syracuse basketball players to score 2,000 points and pull down 1,000 points in their career. And what's most amazing to me is that you played 3 of your 4 years at Syracuse alongside Syracuse's all-time leading scorer, Lawrence Moten, yet you both ended up in the top 3 all-time scorers at Syracuse. How were you and Lawrence Moten able to work so well together to, you know, combine for so many points?
I mean, we're just, in terms of scores, I've never met a scorer like Lawrence Moten. You know, he could just score in so many different ways. And we're the greatest scoring forward tandem in Syracuse history. And I don't think that's really going to ever be approached because, you know, for us to play 3, like you said, 3 together, we scored a lot of points together. You know, like pretty much in the books in a big game, you could just put down 45 to 50 because that's, you know, between the two of us, that's what we're going to get, you know, in all the big games and sometimes a little bit more. So, you know, he's so a great friend of mine. I talk to him all the time. I just spoke to him actually yesterday. He's getting ready for his daughter's got a big game coming up this weekend for her tournament and all that. But, you know, Lawrence is an incredible scorer. It's very humbling to me to see the numbers that I did put up and walk around the dome and still get the love like I just left there yesterday. It's an incredible thing. It really is.
Well, let's talk about that, John. We've talked on this show, and a lot of Syracuse fans have talked about the players that have had their numbers retired. I mean, the numbers don't technically get retired, but the jersey gets raised to the rafter. It happened for Carmelo Anthony this past weekend against Georgetown in the Dome at halftime. And, you know, I personally feel like well, we've even had the debate over who was the most important Orangeman of all time, kind of throwing Dave Bing out of the mix because he was the first one to elevate the program. But I've argued that John Wallace is the most important player to the Syracuse program ever, because when you came onto the team your freshman year, we were on probation, you know, kind of an all-time low for the program, an opportunity for the program to slip. But by the time you left as a senior, you know, we were playing for a national title and going to a Final Four. And that, along with all the statistics, all the great memories of, you know, game-winning shots and throughout your career. I just think it's kind of ridiculous, honestly, that your number isn't retired or you haven't been honored yet. And I certainly think it's inevitable, but, let's get to it. I definitely think number 44, John Wallace, needs to be up there in the rafters with the rest of them. How do you feel about that?
And I'm sure it's going to happen, but, before that happens, I'm sure they're going to do Lawrence Moten. They still haven't done him yet either.
Yep.
So, I don't get caught up in that stuff. Obviously, it'd be nice when it does happen, but all I know is that it was blood, sweat, and tears out there for me. I will always bleed orange, and when people say things like I'm one of the most important people or the most, it makes me feel so good because I love Syracuse, and that's why I went there. To change the program and get it back to the prominence that we were at, in the late '80s, early '90s. I think, like you said, when I left there, we were playing a national championship game, and so it's the only game in my whole playing career that I've never watched. And that was the most, devastating thing I've ever had to deal with because I just couldn't. I just knew we were going to win the game, and I firmly believe if I didn't foul out, we would have won the game.
And you didn't follow out by committing fouls. They called some phantom fouls.
I think there were 3 phantom calls in the game. I went up to all the refs after I fouled out. I told them, they jerked me. It was something that still to this day can get me a little upset because when I look back, obviously Kentucky was the better team. They had 8 NBA guys on their team, but that night,
yeah, 29.
We should have won. And for them to take it away from us. And then that 5th foul was the only time in the, since Lazarus and I was 13, 14 years old that we weren't on the same page. I told him to throw it up, and he threw a chest pass.
Right.
Normally when, I point to the rim or, he always gets it right. He's the best alley-oop passer ever. So it's just, it's just a freakish play. If we score right there, we cut the game to, I think, 3. They're going to be on their heels. I'm going to score again and then again. And, it's just, we were going to win the game.
Yeah, I remember
I just kept replaying that in my head, and it's the one, the one game I've never watched because it's just too painful, because, I firmly believe we were, that should have been our game that night. They had the better team, but it was our night.
Yeah, and speaking of good teams, in the Elite 8, you faced a Kansas team that year that had Paul Pierce, Jock Vaughn, and Rafe LaFrance on it. So you want to talk about a tough road.
Yeah, and Scott Pollard.
Yeah, Scott Pollard, too. I mean, it's amazing. And I agree with you, John. I remember that game like it was yesterday, and we were kind of playing catch-up the whole game, and then we started to, we got it under 5, and I just felt like we were going to pull it off. And then, of course, they foul you out, and it just felt so helpless at that point. But nonetheless, a phenomenal run through the postseason that year. And it was something that Syracuse basketball needed at the time. We got our Final Four in the 80s, and then we got our Final Four in the 90s. And talk about 2003 when they actually did win it. How did that make you feel to know that?
Man, I almost broke my wrist because I was staying down in the condo in Florida working out, getting ready to sign back with the Miami Heat.
Mm-hmm.
And Ronnie Cycli was taking a private plane back and forth. But I was like so dedicated. I was like, I'm not gonna go down there. I'm not gonna do any hanging out. I'm gonna stay focused. And I was trying to get back into the NBA because I was coming back from playing in Greece. So the night we won, I remember jumping up, forgetting I'm in a lower ceiling place. Like literally, almost broke my wrist. And then I talked on the phone with everyone. I talked to Carmelo that night, Hakeem Ward, Coach Boeheim, Mike Hopkins. I called Derek and them were down there. Lawrence, Adrian. I felt like we won. We all won.
Yeah.
It was an incredible feeling. Loved it. And I'm hoping we get that feeling again sometime real soon.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It seems like we've been set up to do it with some unfortunate injuries and the Fab Melo situation last year. what about this year's team, John? I mean, right now they're in a bit of a down cycle a little bit, but if people look back to '96, your team had a little struggles in February as well, and people weren't really talking national championship at the time, and you guys were able to turn it around and make a great run. What does this team need to do to go to the Final Four this year?
First and foremost, our big men have to step up and start just absolutely controlling the glass and finishing inside and being more of a presence inside. And our guards, we got to start taking care of the ball. Last game we just had too many turnovers down the stretch. You got to take care of the ball. We got to have good possessions. And we got to get back to running as much as possible too. And that starts with the rebound. Either steal the rebound and get it out and let's go. That's when we're at our best.
Yeah.
And if we're forced to constantly run just strictly half court, especially in the last couple of games against the zone, we haven't been playing good against the zone, which is ironic because we're a zone team. We should be excellent against the zone. But we got to definitely step it up. But like you said, it's still February. We got a couple weeks to get it together. Hopefully we get on a nice roll. We got the Big East tournament coming real soon. And obviously we will be in the tournament. So I think, there's so much parity in college basketball this year. I think there's literally 10 to 15 teams that can win it all. And I don't know if that's ever been said. But there's legitimately 10 to 15 teams that can win it all this year.
Yeah, and John, that's I agree with that, and obviously the Syracuse fans get a little nutty. They lose 2 in a row, but everybody's losing. Michigan lost to Penn State last night, and everybody's losing every week.
First win.
Yeah, first win in the Big Ten, and like you said, there's not that 2 or 3 dominant teams that are only got a couple losses. Even a Duke. None of these teams are really scare me. If Syracuse had to play them, I think if they play well, they could beat anybody. But yeah, there's so much parity this year, and you kind of see it more and more over the last few years. But this year, it just seems, you don't know. Number one seems like they lose every week. So, I think Syracuse just got to hang in there and start knocking down some shots and attack the basket a little bit more, and they'll be all right.
Well, that's my thing, Burke. I don't think the Georgetown game when we scored 46 points.
Yeah.
Dismal performance.
Burke used to score 46 points in one game himself back at William and Mary.
Maybe at Minders, not at William and Mary,
but we fell in love with the jump shot and we weren't attacking the basket.
Yeah, in the Marquette game, they came out and they attacked early on. Carter Williams went there. He almost had that nice dunk on the first play, and I was like, all right, they're going to attack, and then they kind of got away from that. And when you shoot 4 for 20 from the 3-point line against the zone, it's tough to win games.
It's impossible. You got to stay in attack mode.
And they only got to the line 7 times.
10 of those shots into drives to the basket, it's a huge difference.
Yeah. And Marquette shot 27 foul shots and we shot 7. That's you're not going to win like that. They're not. We're not.
Clarity right there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, John, before I let you go, I got a couple questions, kind of different questions I wanted to ask you while we got you on the line. One of them is, what were the origins of Cuse is in the house, oh my God, because that's still something. When Syracuse does something good, football or basketball, and I text one of my friends during the game, sometimes I just say, oh my God, and they know what I'm talking about. Who came up with that?
That's all me, baby. I started saying that when we beat Arizona at Arizona in '95, my senior year. When we stopped Arizona's like 57 or 58 home game winning streak against non-conference opponents. And because all these people were talking all this junk that they're going to beat us and all that. And there was a song out at the time also that When the East is in the House.
I gotcha.
And I just changed the words. And I started saying that. I got it on videotape and everything. I started saying that in Arizona right after we beat them. When the Cuse is in the house, oh my God, and we all just started chanting.
I love it.
And then when we went on our run, it just kind of took off. And if it's the time of all this social media, it had been viral back then.
Sure, that's right. That's a good point. Another question that our other co-host who's holding for us to give him a call in Cincinnati when we get offline with you here had a question that he wanted me to specifically ask you, and that was, if you could have played with any other player, Syracuse history, that you didn't play with, who would you have liked that to be?
Wow, that's a good one. Probably Sherm Douglas.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
Because, he's very similar to Lazarus.
Yep.
Really good passer, a pass-first point guard. And I feel like him or Lazarus, either or, the best lob passers ever in history of basketball to me. I mean, they always put the lob on the money.
Yeah. Sherm could have set you up nicely, too, I'm sure.
Sherm, he led the NCAAs in assists for 1 or 2 years, and he had a very high assist turnover ratio. He was very good with the ball. So probably Sherm.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Now, you think you're gonna be in the Dome Saturday for the Louisville game?
Actually, I gotta work with doing some stuff with the Knicks on Saturday. I was up there last weekend, though. It was nice.
Yeah, I saw you had a nice hat on. Nice fedora hat on. They showed you on CBS. Well, look, John, we really, really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the Upstate Orange podcast. It's been a great honor for me to have a chance to talk to one of my personal all-time favorite Orangemen. And, again, thanks for coming on, and have a great night.
It's all good, man. I'm sorry about last week, but anytime you guys need me, just let me know, man. Don't hesitate.
Hey, we'll take you up on that.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, buddy. Good talking with you.
All right, my man. Talk to you later.
All right, John. See ya.
Okay, that's John Wallace on the Upstate Orange podcast. We'll be right back after this from our sponsors. Attention, Finger Lakes residents. Have you been injured and deserve compensation? Call Madej, Maris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. Your case deserves personal attention. At Madej, Maris, and Ricky, they know you by name, not just a number on a folder. Call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. That's 315-568-0911. Madej, Maris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys.
The Newark Pilots. See tomorrow's Major League stars today. For more information, go to newarkpilots.com.
The most valuable things are always passed down from generation to generation. It's true for your family, and it's true for our bank. For more than 140 years at Generations Bank, we've greeted you by name, planned with you for the future, and stood by you when you needed a hand. It's what we do, and what we'll continue to do for generations into the future. We might look different now, but in the important ways, we're exactly like we've always been. Stop in your local branch or go to mygenbank.com.
And welcome back to the Upstate Hoops podcast. Once again, thanks to number 44, John Wallace, for joining us on the program. It's always really a lot of fun to get to talk to someone like that and ask him some of these questions. And he didn't hold back. He really answered some interesting answers.
Yeah, he's a great interview, and I've heard him before, and I knew he'd be great. And it's nice. I played one actually in a tournament a couple years ago, so we kind of caught up, then, and kind of stayed in touch ever since. So. It was nice talking to him, and he did a great job, and, it's nice having him on.
Well, holding on the line right now, we got Brad Connor in Cincinnati, who had to step aside for the beginning to make room for JW. We didn't figure having two people on the phone would make too much sense during that interview. But, Brad, finally, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Tough act to follow after having John Wallace on. Most people probably prefer to listen to him than me, but I'll try and fill in the gaps when I can.
Did you listen? You heard the interview?
I did. I was proud of the fact that my question stumped him.
I was glad that he thought so hard about it. He could have thrown out anybody and just been done with it, but he really thought about it. And I thought that Douglas was a great answer. Sure, who wouldn't want to play with Sherm Douglas?
And that's kind of who I thought he'd say, either that or or but he came out with Pearl first, and then he went to Sherm. I would have thought one of the two would have you would have thought a big man like that would have picked a point guard. But,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. He was going to go with Sherm or Pearl. So
he and Carmelo on the same team. There's only one ball and not enough shots to go around. So I can't imagine he would have picked Carmelo.
So, we obviously spent a lot of time talking to John there, but we got to talk about what's happened this week with an embarrassing loss at home to Georgetown, in which we only scored 46 points, and then going on the road and losing to Marquette, which wasn't too big of a surprise, losing on the road in the Big East. But I think that it was a game that a lot of Orange fans thought that we got kind of pushed around a little bit and highlighted some of our weaknesses. I'll give you my take right off the bat with this Syracuse team. And then get your guys' impressions. They're 22-6 right now. It's obviously been a successful season, another 20-win season. We're set up for, a postseason run. The way that college basketball has been this year, I don't think anybody can get too upset with a few losses because everybody's losing. I was really upset about, imagine you're an Indiana fan and you're watching Indiana play in the game they lost this week against Minnesota at the road at Minnesota. It's a similar situation to, I guess, Syracuse Marquette. You're furious with Tyler Zeller. You're upset. I think it happens to a lot of teams. But with that being said, I just think the Syracuse team's a little soft. I think our guards are a little soft. I think they shy away a little bit from the pressure. I think our big guys are a little soft, and that was exposed big time when Devontae Gardner had his way with us, and it gets exposed when we get out rebounded. Not necessarily, just sometimes we get out hustled for rebounds, and sometimes we're not bodying up guys. But Carter Williams and Trish are playing great when things go great, but when another team makes a hard run at us, you can see their shoulder slump. I mean, you can visibly see them kind of shy away from that challenge, and that's what has me most concerned going forward because, we need our guards to be confident and be ready for a challenge because a lot of teams are going to be coming at them if we want to make a run through March. And so what do you think, Brad? What do you take from those two games? Are we soft? Is this Syracuse team soft?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not – I think I texted you with this comment during the week. I said this team would be great to match up in the ACC where toughness – isn't necessarily top criteria. You can equate soft teams with some that you see come out of the ACC, but the team doesn't play classic Big East style from what we're accustomed to. But to me, it wasn't as much softness as it is just it almost feels like a leadership void. And we've been talking about leadership with this team for a long time, hoping that Trish is a senior and that would be his role. But he's not that guy, and you talked about shoulder slumping, and when you think of that, you think of Brandon Trish. Unfortunately, you've got Carter Williams who wants to be a leader, but I'm not sure he's the guy that's going to rally the troops. I think what we see out of Carter Williams a lot of times is he kind of looks for his own a little bit. He gets in modes where he's setting guys up, but other times he just wants to do his thing. And CJ Fair doesn't have the ball in his hands enough because he doesn't. He has to rely on his guards to get him the ball, where he can't really put the team on his shoulders as much as we'd like. And he's that guy, for better or worse, but he doesn't get it enough where he can really lead the charge for these guys.
So yeah. What about Carter Williamsburg? What's his deal?
I don't know. He in both games, Georgetown and Marquette, he had a lot of key late turnovers. The Marquette game, he was leaving his feet and jumping up in the air and making passes with nobody is open.
JV basketball players are taught not to do that.
Exactly. Come to a jump stop, make a pass. He's too good of a player, and I don't know if all the hype's getting to him if he's thinking about the NBA like people are saying, but he hasn't really finished well these last couple games. And, he had some games early on where he didn't play well all game, like the Louisville game, but then he played well at the end, and people kind of overlooked his, 6 turnovers in that Louisville game. But, he has struggled this year, and, as I don't know if he's getting worn down, but it just seems like really lately the team is, him and Trish just haven't played well. And it's a team that they win when Trish and Carter Williams play well. They win.
They can't lose.
And lately they're not. They're not getting their assists and they're not scoring. Trish can't have games like he's had. Against Georgetown 14 with 10 points, and he comes back against Marquette and 4 for 10. He needs to make shots, and Syracuse can't shoot 4 for 20 from the 3-point line and win games and shoot. Against Marquette, they made a few more, 8 for 24. But like John said, they're soft inside. They're getting beat up on the boards. Early on we talked about this is a pretty good Syracuse rebounding team. Well, the last 10 games they haven't been,
right.
And I think that's a key. And they can't get out and run when they don't rebound, and they're not a great half court offense. They're shooting a lot of threes from deep. They're not. They don't make them when they're on the line. They're not going to make them when they're 4 feet behind the line, most likely. And,
or 8 feet in some cases.
Yeah,
behind the hash mark.
It's they're. I don't think we need to panic as much as a lot of people are and saying they're no good, this and that. Everybody's losing this year. We kind of talked about that already, but they need to turn it around. They need if they lose here to Louisville and lose and beat DePaul and lose to Georgia, they're going to end the season losing 5 out of 6 games and. It's not how you want to go into the Big East tournament. I think there's still plenty of time to turn it around. They just need to start playing a little bit better basketball and, take care of the ball, and, get CJ more involved, in that Marquette game. I think he went from the 12-minute mark to, 10 seconds to go in the game without a shot attempt. Yeah. He is our best player. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. He is our best player. And, and he needs to get the ball, and they need to. Boeheim said it's tough against the zone to get the ball to specific players.
Devontae Gardner got the ball against the zone.
Otto Porter got the ball against the zone. And, they can set him up if they really want to, and I think that needs to be a focus for the guys. And, if CJ's got to shoot 15 to 20 times, maybe, he shoots a great percentage, and it cuts down on some of the other stuff.
He's the one guy that I never cringe when he takes a shot.
No. And, Christmas is just gone down the tubes, it seems like. He's getting beat up inside. He's not scoring. He's not really rebounding. Who was it? Devontae Gardner was eating him up in there.
And Christmas is strong. Physically, he's tough.
He gets out of, we talked about it with Brad a little bit. He goes for every block shot, and then he's not in position to rebound. And it's tough.
Going back to CJ Fair, something, if you guys watched the Marquette telecast on ESPN, that I was just amazed at. They had a poll. Vote for your Big East Player of the Year at this point, and the option they chose for Syracuse was Carter Williams. He actually got like 39% of the vote. Are you kidding me? Carter Williams. Carter Williams shouldn't even be in the top 10 Big East Player of the Year candidates. CJ Fair, I think, should be in the top 3 or 4 candidates. I was just surprised that nobody at ESPN was paying close enough attention to put CJ Fair as that option instead of Carter Williams. And then the fact that so many people voted for Carter Williams. Sure, if the award was handed out in late December when he was racking up 12, 13 assists a game against Central Connecticut State, but in Big East play, he's not even a consideration. And honestly, the talk about him going pro is laughable. He cannot get time on an NBA court in the foreseeable future because he will not be able to protect the ball from any of the guards, and he won't be able to contribute with an outside shot.
Yeah, I understand why the pros like him. He's a 6'6", super athletic. At times you see him go down the lane, he's dunking on people, but he needs to be able to make he wide open threes. He's not knocking down on a consistent basis, and his turnovers are up. His stock has dropped some, and he needs to come back for another year, in my opinion. And, that might be a little selfish reasons there, but I guess when you're a lottery pick, it's tough to make that decision.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset with Carter Williams going if he's projected to be a 10th pick or a 12th pick. But what I'm saying is, who are these NBA scouts that think that they want to put that type of pick, on a guy like Carter Williams who, quite frankly, I don't think he could see the court in the NBA for a few years. He's a lot different than Deion Waiters.
Yeah. Deion's a, more physical, better shooter, really finished well, explosive, and, different players in different positions, really. But, I think everybody knew kind of Deion was going to be, have a pretty good year this year. And, Carter Williams going pro next year, I don't know. Yeah,
and and not to keep really bashing on Carter Williams, he's not the one that's saying that, like I said, that he's going to be a 10th pick. He just kind of is, but he's got to mature a little bit. He's a classic case, I think, of a player who thinks he's a little better than he actually is. He doesn't realize his own weaknesses, and he tries to do too much on the court because he thinks he can do almost anything. And And I think, the shoplifting incident at Lord and Taylor was an indication that he wasn't really mature enough yet to lead a team like this. Brett, do you guys think that he can turn it around? You think he can change at this point in the season to be that type of player that we need to lead us into March?
I don't know. You're going to see it in fits and starts. You'd see it some games where he'll come out and do exactly what you think he needs to do, and then other games you'll see it like he played against Georgetown, and he's an enigma. I'm not sure he's going to get it figured out before the end of the season, and in my opinion, I think he's gone because I think NBA drafts on potential, and he's going to be a lottery pick, in my opinion, based on that. So I don't think it's probably he won't fulfill his potential at Syracuse. I don't see it, and you just hope you get the best from him in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, because that's going to be it. And then it's Tyler Ennis time, I guess. Next year, starting backcourt, Tyler Ennis and Trevor Cooney. Michael Benajay, hopefully, is...
well, at this point, let's hope Benajay can be the starter at the 2-guard. Jimmy, and you talk about it a lot, too, is I know you love Jeremy Grant, and, he played 8 minutes against Georgetown, 9 against Marquette. And, obviously he's not going to be in there for fair, but, he needs more minutes, I think, maybe to help shore up the defense. Or
he's the one defender at the rim. Him and CJ are the two guys that'll defend at the rim, with some intelligence and with some intensity.
And I read, teams are kind of attacking his side of the zone, Sutherland's side of the zone sometimes.
Yeah, Sutherland's been ridiculous on defense. And, just horrible.
Out of position and getting out rebounded is a big thing. And, I don't know if, obviously Sutherland brings that something that Grant doesn't, where he can score 9 points in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And, Grant's not capable of that necessarily, but he seems to be a little bit more steady. And I'm not saying he needs to play 25 minutes a game, but maybe 15 minutes a game, 20 minutes a game, somewhere in there. And, maybe rest, give Fair a little bit of a rest and, split time with Sutherland a little bit.
And I also wouldn't mind seeing when Trish comes out of the game or Williams comes out of the game to bring up, Sutherland to the shooting guard, and that's another way to make room for Grant. So, I don't know if you guys saw the press conference after the Marquette game. Brad, did you catch that?
Yeah, I did. Boeheim commenting on all of us finding our Pulitzers under various rocks. And
classic Boeheim. And, first off, I don't think that anybody's going to get a Pulitzer for their, game recap of the Syracuse-Marquette game. But stranger things have happened, I suppose. But, to me, I love it. Like we've talked about before, Boeheim's press conferences are great, and he's just lost 2 straight. I'm sure he's still a little sore over that Georgetown loss. Do you think Jim Boeheim likes losing to John Thompson's son and then Buzz Williams? You think I can tell you right now that Jim Boeheim hates losing to a guy like Buzz Williams, hates it, and it probably eats at him. And so one way that he vents, I think, is to attack the media, which. Nobody asked any questions that were out of line, or they did, and Boeheim just bit their heads off, and like I say, I love it. I personally think he's also deflecting some of the attention from his players, who are probably going to face a lot of criticism, in that press conference. So he kind of deflects it and just attacks some of the reporters.
A lot of speculation. That's exactly what he did when he attacked Andy Katz in that press conference against UConn, because they were so bad against UConn.
Yeah, and so I guess it's no coincidence that these press conferences come after a loss to a rival, or to a league opponent in which they hadn't played so well. I think it's a combination of him genuinely being angry because he's a competitor and he loves to win, hates to lose, and the other part of it being that he is trying to deflect some of those questions away from, his players, who probably are having a tough enough time, coming to terms with the fact that they aren't going to win the Big East regular season title.
No, it would have been nice if Georgetown would have lost last night. Then Syracuse kind of could have controlled their own destiny, really.
Otto Porter is unbelievable. He's unbelievable.
UConn blew that game, really.
They did, but Porter
the guy was wide open in the basket, and then they let him go coast to coast. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Otto Porter, not only is he going to be Big East player of the year, he national player of the year at this point. Georgetown's won 9 out of 10 games or something like that.
I think they won 10 straight now with that UConn win.
And he's been phenomenal for, he won, going back to that Georgetown game, Syracuse scored 46 points in the Dome. I mean, that is unreal. And you're playing against the zone, which you play against every day in practice, obviously. And then you allow Otto Porter to score 33.
He's the only guy that was shooting that day.
Georgetown's other high scorer had 7.
Yeah.
And, typically, everybody says, oh, go man to man. But typically, Syracuse, when somebody gets hot, they shut them down in the zone. They focus on them, and they change the zone around. But and Otto Porter was left open. I mean, I don't think Otto Porter hit unbelievable shots in the Syracuse game. He was left open a lot.
Open shots, he buried open shots. And
he found the seams in the zone. He got himself in the right spots. He exploited what was there. I think that's the way you beat the zone, and that's what Syracuse wasn't doing. They were forcing things that weren't there instead of trying to pick it apart.
Well, let's talk about that. A lot of people now concerned, obviously, with our inability to score in the half court and the way that we're running our sets, coming down on Boeheim for maybe not running some different stuff. But it's the same system that Boeheim's always run. I just think these guys aren't running it the way that he wants it to be run. They're passing around the outside without any real purpose. And then when the shot clock gets down to about 15-20, they start to try to go one-on-one. Or at that point, and I don't think it's a case of Boeheim needing to run different things. I think it's a case of his players not maybe executing with a sense of urgency.
Yeah, I think Carter Williams has this sense that he can do whatever he wants. Give him 5 seconds and he can get to the rim. Give him 5 seconds and he can find an open man. And in some ways, he's over his head with that attitude, I think.
Yeah, we need to quit shooting so many threes and attack the basket. And, we shot 7 foul shots, I think, against Marquette, and they shot 27. And, that's a big discrepancy. And, maybe some of the calls were bad, but still, not that bad.
We're shooting too many jump. You're not going to get fouled when you shoot 3-point, 32-foot 3-pointers.
Yeah, and it's one thing if we're, shooting 45%, but we're shooting 20% from the 3-point line. So,
but how many offensive sets consist of Carter Williams and Trish and Sutherland running a 3-man weave up top until there's 7 seconds left in the shot clock? It drives me crazy.
Every one of them, then you throw in a high pick, and that's pretty much been it. And
the 3 of us, and
and we talked about it too. In the zone, I guess it's hard. But you can't throw the ball in the Christmas. You can't throw the ball in the Kita. And so you're left.
The only option.
And Fair's not really a post-up guy necessarily. Or at least they don't put him in the post to score. He's more of a mid-range jump shooter and slasher. And we talked about it early in the year. It's tough to score when you don't have a guy you can just throw the ball to him and, he can score. And, like a Duke has a Mason Plumlee. A lot of guys have a power forward or, we talked about, can we post up Michael Carter-Williams
Tyler Zeller
with his height. And, it's tough when you don't have that guy to draw double teams and make, the opposing defense kind of get out of sorts and cause a disruption. We throw it in the, Christmas. They just look at him. He's not going to score typically. And if he's going to shoot a 10-footer, I think most teams will live with that. So, I think Syracuse is going to come out and play good against Louisville, and they obviously you make shots, it's a lot easier to play, but I think they need to attack the basket a little bit more and not settle for the threes.
Yeah, and then on the other side of the ball on defense, I think Carter Williams and Sutherland just do a horrible job of closing out on shooters. I think it's that simple, and I think sometimes Trish is overzealous in closing out. And, he fouled Otto Porter late in that game when he made a 3. That's just, kind of ridiculous to foul a guy in that situation. But Sutherland gets lost a lot in the zone. And like I said, Carter Williams he seems to play good in the zone until the point comes when he has to contest a shot. And he gets caught watching the shooter instead of contesting the shot. And I think that probably Christmas's strongest point and our strongest point on defense is at the rim when they take it inside at the rim. That wasn't the case against Marquette, but I think Christmas and Fair and Jeremy Grant and Baikita defend well at the rim. I think our perimeter players got to do a better job of keeping track of where their scorer is and getting out on the shooters. And, and that hurts our ability to get easy points on offense because when our defense isn't good, we're getting less transition baskets and they're scoring more and we're playing from behind, and it just seems like I said, going full circle to my argument that this team was a little soft is, when a team kind of makes a run at us, we're at our worst, where great teams will shut down a run with a counter. They'll counter it. And we just aren't countering. It seems like team runs at us, whether we're up 12 or whether it's a tie game, that team's going to have their way, until about 2 minutes left in the game when finally they realize, geez, we got to do something. And by then it's too late. It was too late against Georgetown, and it was too late against Marquette.
And I thought there was just times where we were simply out-hustled, and didn't want it. And, these little guards from Marquette were getting in there and getting the rebounds. It's like, Syracuse looks around for everybody else to do it instead of just doing it,
Yeah.
I thought they played good against Marquette, and, Coach Boeheim said the same thing. And, I was kind of watching the game. You're up 7. I thought they were going to win that game the whole time until 5 minutes ago, and all of a sudden they got outscored 15-2 and they lose the game. And, you can't have spells like that, and that's a lot of it. I thought was just desire and hustle and playing with that sense of urgency like you were talking about.
Devontae Gardner did it. He had it. He was the guy we wished we had on our side. I mean, he went after every loose ball. He's lumbering around 280 pounds on that court, and he's getting the loose balls that Syracuse isn't getting to.
And making free throws while the crowd is chanting while he's shooting. That was kind of odd, wasn't it? They were chanting automatic every time while he was shooting free throws.
Didn't hurt him. How does a big guy like that shoot 85+%?
Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, really, one of the most shocking things to me in all of college basketball is the inability of some guys to not even shoot 70%. You're on scholarship to Division I basketball, and you should be able to make 7 to 10 free throws. But for so many guys, it just doesn't happen. And foul shooting as a whole is not what it used to be. I guess it's because it's not as glamorous as a highlight reel posterizing dunk. But, they got Louisville next. We're going to come back and preview that shortly before we wrap up the show. But first, Brad, it's time for us to hear what you got for us tonight in terms of Orange trivia.
All right, the Georgetown game, that Burke, you were one of 35,012 in attendance.
I was.
And all-time on-campus record. Wanted to see if you guys could give me some rough estimate of how many crowds have gone to Carrier Dome games at 30,000 plus. Any idea at all?
I think it's a pretty high number, right? It's
37, I'm going to say. Just a guess.
Oh, I'm going to say 86.
I'm thinking there's like 2 or 3 of those 30,000 games a year since, let's say, 82. So maybe a little bit. Yeah, maybe you're right, Burke. I'm going to say 40-something. Maybe say an average of 2 a year, get over 30.
72 games.
Yeah, Burke was closest.
Plus.
Yes, that was an average about maybe 2.8 a year.
And I tell you what, being there this past Saturday, it was an awesome atmosphere. The players came out, they were going through the student section, the place was going nuts, and this was 25 minutes before tip-off. And then the crowd kind of just sat there waiting for something to happen, and it never did. So it was kind of disappointing, obviously, being there.
It was crazy. The people were sitting in the other end zone. I mean, there's no, you can't even possibly see the game from back there.
No.
I sat there once.
It's a bad seat for a football game, let alone a basketball game going on in the other end zone.
Yeah, I sat one time. I had long-range view tickets for a Syracuse-Georgetown game, Greg Monroe's senior year. I don't know why I remember it was Monroe's senior year, but he actually had a shot at the buzzer to make it. And we had long-range view seats, and my uncle and I went, and we ended up sitting down behind the big screen that they used to have behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And watching it on the big screen. And back then, you used to be able to walk around the court, whether you had tickets down there or not. And so what I did was, and I taped the game and go home, and I could see myself doing this on TV. But, I would watch on the big screen for 10, 15 minutes, and then I would go walk around the court, once or maybe twice if I could get away with it, and have the best seats in the house for, about 60 seconds. come back, watch it on the big screen, and go walk it around the court. That was one time I had long-range view seats. Another time was the Pittsburgh game in 2003 when Jerry McNeil made 2 free throws to send it to overtime. And we went up with a bunch of guys. And normally when I go up, when I don't have great tickets, I barter with the guys on M Street to get some good seats. But we had like 8 or 9 of us, so we had to buy them at the door. And we were sitting right back under that Jim Brown banner, and you can see what's going on, and you can tell that we scored because the crowd cheers. But it's no place to watch a game, to say the least. But with that being said, just being in the building that day, that game in 2003 against Pittsburgh, which was a great overtime win, I'll never forget it. We had a great time up there. Me and my 8 of my friends
are sitting back there. They just want to be part of it. They probably got their headphones on. They're listening to the game on the radio, and they just want to be part of it. The 35,000 they had. What's the? How many games have they had over 20,000 this season? They've had 17 home games this season.
Yeah, it's tough for them to get over that mark when the students aren't in. I'm gonna say 9. I'm going to say 10. I'm going to say 10 because the crowds for those mid-range games have been better this year.
I'll say 13.
Tim is right, 10. Exactly on the nose.
Good guess.
There's obviously the 35,000. Second highest was 27,005 against Villanova and 27,000 plus against St. John's. Then Cincinnati on that Monday afternoon was 24. Notre Dame almost 24. That was a big Monday, I think.
Yeah, about 24, 25 is when you start to get to that range where your seats aren't so great, where you make the choice of, do I want to stay home and watch it on TV or do I want to trek up the hill in the 2 degrees and watch it in the dome?
I had a great seat for the game.
Yeah, you were
perfect.
Second deck. That second deck
right up front
is those are great seats in the second deck. As long as you're not, if you're back where you're underneath the concrete, the acoustics are terrible.
Right. No, we were right up front and mid-court. It was perfect.
And really, any seats between the baselines going right up to the top of the dome are great seats to watch the game. I don't like being behind the baskets or in the corner so much. But, and of course, anywhere down there, like where you were, Virk, in the second deck up front or in the first deck is just an incredible experience. You're right on top of the action. I think the dome's a great place to watch a basketball game. A lot of people will debate that it's not. But I think you just got to make sure you got good seats,
right?
Which there is about 15,000 really good seats in that place.
Yeah, it's not as comfortable a place as some. I mean, I've been to the Yum Center, and that's an amazing place to watch a game because there's not a bad seat, and they're all seat backs and cushions and everything else, and a lot of seats in the dome are on benches. That takes some of the atmosphere away, I guess. But I mean, you're not. You don't go to the dome to have a quaint, cozy experience there because of the magnitude of the Carrier Dome. So I think.
Yeah, and the other nice thing about the dome that's different than other places is you get to walk around the backcourt and you get to walk right down courtside before the game and watch the players warm up and bring your kids down there, and get right up close. And there's just a lot of stuff going on.
I assure you.
What's that?
You couldn't get anywhere near the court at the Yum Center, I can assure you, unless you had tickets down there.
Yeah, because they are basketball arenas that are, there's no space to walk around the court. So
right.
I think that's one thing that's kind of cool about the dome. And when I brought my daughter there, we had a lot of fun just walking around the backcourt and walking down by the band, and getting right up close when they were warming up. And I think Carrier Dome's a great venue for college basketball, obviously, and I've seen. I've probably seen well over 400 games, in that place going back to when it was a tartan surface. Can't remember the first dome basketball game I went to. I remember the first Syracuse basketball game I went to was Syracuse versus Seton Hall. Bill Rafferty coaching Seton Hall and Manly. I can remember going to a lot of CW post games back in the day though, on maybe a Tuesday night. I can't remember my first dome game. That's kind of weird. I'll have to think about that and get back to you. Any more trivia, Brad?
Yes, a couple of quick ones. What opponent do they have the most appearances or most games that there were 30,000 plus in attendance? against which opponent?
Knee jerk, you'd say Georgetown, but I'm going to go with Villanova.
I'm going to say Georgetown.
Georgetown, it is 17 appearances from Georgetown.
Wow.
Syracuse is 10-7 in 30,000-plus games against Georgetown.
Not a great percentage, really.
Yeah, for home in front of that environment, you'd like to think we come up a little bit better.
You got to tell fans to stay home from now on.
Yeah, especially when we beat some of those Ewing teams and those great Morning teams and Iverson teams. We won some of those games in the Dome. So some of the losses probably would be surprising.
Yeah. True or false, Syracuse has drawn over 30,000 pre-January 1st.
False. Because we've had Florida in there last year. That was like a 26,000. I remember going to an NC State game in December that was in the mid-20s, maybe even low. I'm going to say false. That's never happened.
I'll agree with Jim on that one.
Syracuse has drawn 30,000-plus pre-December 1st twice. Going back 1983.
83, North Carolina.
That's a good one. You're absolutely right. When Jordan was there.
We got killed that game. I listened to that game on the radio.
57-64, Syracuse lost that game in front of 32,000 plus.
Okay.
And then the only other time, 1990. You remember the opponent, December 2nd, 1990.
I was a freshman.
This is surprising that there was 30,000 plus for this game.
I was a freshman that year. Or no, I was. If that was December game, that was my freshman year.
90 freshman year, you're right.
December 2nd, we weren't on break yet. I can't remember who they played. I'm sure I was there.
Yeah, 30,000 plus. The Syracuse won. This team was a very highly ranked team, but was obviously not a Big East team, so they played them.
A highly ranked team in 1990, December 2nd.
Indiana.
Nah, I don't think we ever hosted Indiana.
I have no idea.
Geez, I'm having trouble even venturing a guess here. Oh, you know what I want to say? I'm going to say Michigan State.
The answer is Temple.
Oh, wow. Marcus Camby?
Mark Macon led Temple team.
Yep.
I don't know if that was the year they were number one.
Oh, Camby was a
they were pretty
UMass.
highly ranked that year.
Camby was UMass. I don't know why I thought Marcus Camby.
No, when Richmond beat Syracuse the next round, they lost to Temple. I know we don't like to talk about that on the show, but
yeah, let's shift gears. Great.
Well, one more. What season
Okay.
did Syracuse have the most 30,000 games?
What season? 2003.
In this season, they had 30,000 games.
It's 2003. That Pitt game was 30,000. The Rutgers game was 2,000. Was over that year. The final home game for Carmelo. It's 2003.
I'll say 89.
Burke's a lot closer. In 2003, they only had 30,000 games. The Rutgers one, you're absolutely right. That was the record at that time, 30,000. They had two others that season, or a couple weeks before. But 89 was the second most. 1990, they had 7.
That was the year that Coleman was a senior. Billy Owens, LaRon Ellis, Dave Johnson was a freshman.
Sophomore, maybe.
Sherm Douglas was a senior. That team was unbelievable.
No, they were in the Final 8, I think, that year. Lost to Minnesota, if I remember right. Or Illinois. No, Illinois 89, Minnesota 90, Sweet 16 maybe.
Oh, Illinois. We lost to Illinois in the Elite 8 that year.
Is that 89 or 90?
Kenny Battle.
So the Syracuse averaged in that season 29,918 over all 16 home games. They almost averaged 30,000.
That's hard to believe. Well, Syracuse is a town that really gets on the bandwagon when we got it. In that year, we were top ranked. And that was also pre-ESPN. Not pre-ESPN. Obviously, there was ESPN. But back then, you couldn't watch every game on TV. Now, you can watch every single game on TV if you're a Syracuse fan. So that's going to naturally keep some fans home. But that's interesting. I didn't realize they averaged that much at any point.
Yeah, there were 20 or 80 fans shy of 30,000 average. So you and I should have gone to more games that season.
Well, good trivia as usual, Brad. let's real quickly kind of move on here as we're running a little bit late. Syracuse, Louisville, Saturday noon on CBS. When's the last time Syracuse lost 3 in a row? There's some trivia for you. I don't even have the answer for you because I don't even remember. So it's been at least 3 years. 3 in a row?
Yeah, I don't know. But let's hope it's not the Saturday.
Yeah, and it really could be. The way that this team is playing, it could easily happen. Louisville we beat them once, and you know how hard it is to beat a team like Louisville in conference twice. Siva and Russ Smith are going to be all over Carter Williams. They got to be licking their chops. Any of these big-time Big East guards got to be licking their chops when they see they're going to match up against Carter Williams. I think defensively, not offensively, but defensively, I think they're like, we're going to pick this guy's pocket. We're gonna turn him over. We're going to frustrate him. And I think that's the biggest challenge heading into Saturday is how Carter Williams and Trish are going to handle the Louisville pressure.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Louisville, pressure the guards up front and then drop back into their zone. I think, obviously Syracuse is going to be playing zone, but I think Louisville is going to play a lot of zone where they, pressure the ball up front and slow Syracuse down, then drop back in that zone and, give Syracuse 20 seconds to run their half-court offense, which, they've been struggling with. But I'd be shocked if Louisville didn't play a lot of zone. Georgetown Marquette did, and obviously that worked. And, Louisville's a team, too, who our zone should be effective against. They're not a great shooting team.
Yep.
Russ Smith can get hot from out there. But in general, Louisville's not a great shooting team, not a great offensive team in general. And, it's going to be a defensive battle. I think, 64, 65 points is going to win that game again. And, hopefully Syracuse can put up more than the 46 they scored against Georgetown.
Yeah, I'd like to see a breakout game. What are your predictions, Brad, for that game Saturday? You think we're going to turn it around, get a win?
I don't. That's a tough one because I was trying to get a read on Louisville, and they've righted the ship a little bit. They had those 3 straight losses, but it's not clear to me that they're playing any better, and it may just be a function of the fact they're just playing the crap teams, the Big East. They've only won, I think, 1 road game since month and a half. I mean, they haven't really beaten any good teams, and they haven't won on the road. And so going into the Dome, I think that's going to be a real challenge for them. The optimist in me thinks Syracuse will win, fight one. I could see them coming out and doing the same thing they did against Georgetown, and then they could lose by 10, 15.
Yeah, really, you can toss a coin. We don't know what we're going to get. We've seen this is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde case of the team. But I just think that bad play it becomes as a result of a team, coming at us and pressuring us. And I think Louisville's going to do that. But with that being said, hopefully Carter Williams has learned from his mistakes. Hopefully Trish is ready to break out of the slump and kind of capture in his final month as a Syracuse Orangeman to kind of capture in on some of that potential that Boeheim's praised him as having the ability to score 30 points every night, and we've seen that in flashes. And Saturday would be a great time for him to come through with a nice 24-point game and a nice shooting game in 40 minutes. So they have Louisville Saturday. Then Wednesday night, it's 6 o'clock. It's DePaul for the final home game. Senior night for James Sutherland and Brandon Trish. And then on Saturday, a week from Saturday, March 9th, we are at Georgetown for another noon start. And then that's it. Then it's time for the final Big East tournament ever involving Syracuse and really, as we know it, the Big East. And then it's Selection Sunday, which a little quick programming note. Selection Sunday night, we'll be here 9 o'clock live to react to Syracuse's selection and all the brackets. We're hoping, Brad will be here. We're hoping to have a couple other people in studio, maybe Eric Lorenzetti in studio with us that night. So mark your calendars for 9 o'clock on Selection Sunday. And I guess, guys, we're going to jump quickly to our top 5 power rankings. And this is kind of an exercise in futility trying to say these are the top 5 teams. There's 15 teams. There's maybe 20 teams that legitimately could win this thing this year. And for the first time all season, I don't have Syracuse in my top 5. So you know that there's issues up on the hill if I don't have Syracuse in my top 5. I got Indiana at 5. I want to put them higher, but they looked absolutely pitiful against Minnesota. And if a team with a couple of big guys can do that to Tyler Zeller, I don't think that Indiana can make a run if Zeller's going to have a game like that. Duke at number 4. Tom Kelly supposedly coming back. That's kind of scary if you hate Duke like I do.
Ryan
Kelly, whatever his name is. Duke is a lot better when he plays.
Duke got beat tonight, just so you know.
Oh, who did they? Miami?
Virginia.
Virginia. Wow, that's too bad. You know what? Duke's out. I don't know who to put in though. Maybe I could slide Syracuse back in. Miami number 3. They got Duke coming up Saturday night. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got Georgetown number 2. Winners at 10 straight. I don't think people are giving this team credit, and I don't think, Otto Porter, as we mentioned, best player in the country probably, and he's a surefire NBA, all-star, and that I don't think people are giving Georgetown enough credit, probably because of the recent, history in the NCAA tournament and kind of not breaking through. But I think this is the year, unfortunately, that Georgetown's going to do it. That's not saying that we can't beat them when we play them down there, but I got Georgetown too. And number 1, I got Gonzaga. I can't believe I'm doing it, but who else has earned it as much as they have? And again, they are not to say that their conference is a cakewalk, but compared to Big Ten or Big East or even ACC scheduling or Big 12 scheduling, it is a cakewalk. But they've come through with win after win. I got them number 1. I think my top 5 is a sham. I think it means nothing this year. How about you, Brad? Does your top 5 mean anything?
No, not a damn thing.
Well, who do you got?
Number 5, well, I hit Duke before tonight, and then they lost, and so I bumped Miami back in, even though Miami lost to Wake Forest this week.
I know. Can you believe that?
I can't make heads or tails of any of it. But Miami's in at 5. Kansas is in at 4. They won a close one against Iowa. It was Iowa State on Monday. They're not as playing as well as they were before. But you know what? Nobody is. Number 3, Georgetown, for the same reasons you said, Jim. I mean, they certainly passed the eye test now. I'll tell you that. They've passed a lot of tests over the last couple of weeks, and it's hard to imagine that they're not going to keep doing what they're doing. 2, I've got Gonzaga. Couldn't get them up to number 1. They're doing everything that's expected of them. They're not losing to bad teams like everybody else is, but I don't know. I have a tough time thinking that if Gonzaga was in the Big Ten that they'd have 2 losses right now. And that's why I've got Indiana at number 1. The Big Ten is a killer schedule this year. And Indiana's not great on the road in the Big Ten. We've seen that. But you don't have to play in other people's gyms when you get to the tournament. I think Indiana on a neutral court is probably as good as anybody there is. So Indiana won.
Good point. No road games in the NCAA tournament.
I got Georgetown number 5. Probably not as high on them as you guys are. Obviously, Otto Porter's a great player, but I mean, the rest of the team just doesn't seem like they're that good. They win games, and they're on a great roll, but I could see them losing early again this year in the tournament. I got Indiana number 4. They had that tough loss to Minnesota on the road. They've had, they've struggled on the road, like Brad said, but I still got them in number 4. I think, they're probably the team to beat if you had to pick one maybe going into the tournament just because they're so talented. Kansas, I got back at number 3. They've been playing pretty good. They really stole that game against Iowa State.
Yeah,
he charged, and then they called a crap foul, I thought, on Iowa State. But and I did find out Ben McLemore, Brad, was a partial qualifier last year, so he was pretty much academically ineligible for Kansas last year. I know we talked about that before, why he redshirted. But
great article, by the way, in the USA Today about McLemore, about his upbringing.
Yeah, I read that.
He really came from extreme poverty, and obviously a lot of pressure on him to succeed, and make it in the NBA.
Yeah, that made me root for Kansas a little bit more too. He seems like
it's
a good
great
kid.
story. It's in the USA Today, if you read it, Thursday, February 28th, USA Today.
I got Miami number 2. I know they lost on the road to Wake Forest, which I don't think you can really have much of a worse loss at this time of the season. It's not a very strong Wake Forest team, but they have played. I think they beat NC State at home as well. And Miami came back at home and got back on track the other night. But
you can't have a worse loss than Wake Forest is Michigan losing to Penn State.
Yeah, that's true, Brad. I forgot about that one. 0-14 in Big Ten or whatever they were.
Yeah.
And but I think Miami's a team that can make a deep run. You watch them play. They got a nice team. They got big guys. Their 4-man can really stretch the floor.
They're old. They have like 5th and 6th year seniors on that team too, which that makes a big
nice
difference.
Guard. You guys see him play. He's I like to watch him.
Yeah, and I think they're for real. And we'll find out more Saturday at Duke. But I think Miami wins that game at Duke. And then number 1, I got Gonzaga. They're talented. They got pro players on that team. There's no reason not to have them number 1. I know it's kind of funny, and but they've played a lot, some pretty good teams this year, and they went through some injuries and stuff like that, and they're still they're just blowing away people in their conference at this point.
You kind of feel like maybe this is Gonzaga and Coach Mark Few's year to go to the Final Four. I mean,
yeah, they're going to get a 1 seed, and I said it 3 weeks ago. I think that they're probably the biggest lock for a 1 seed because they're not going to lose again this year unless they get upset in their tournament somehow. But even then, they might be a 1 seed. So
right,
that's my top 5.
Well, all right, guys, enjoy the game on Saturday, and then we got DePaul again on Wednesday. Then we'll be back here next Thursday night, where we'll obviously talk about those games and preview the Georgetown game, the final regular season game, and then we might have to talk a little bit about our scheduling. Maybe we'll come back with a Tuesday show the week of the Big East tournament, and then start doing our show every Sunday night there on out. But we'll certainly let you know. But
one parting shot.
Yep.
Thought that I had on Monday night that impressed me a little bit is the fact that was probably the last big Monday that Syracuse will ever compete in.
Ugh. Oh, don't worry. We'll be playing Sunday night at 6 o'clock on ESPNU as part of ACC Sunday Night Basketball. Probably the worst
Look forward to
time slot ever. And then what's the other nights we'll play? Wednesday nights in the ACC?
Thursday nights, I think they do.
Thursday nights?
No, that's what Duke is just playing.
Man,
Yeah.
Duke's got to turn around and play Saturday night.
Yeah, so no more big Mondays.
Awesome.
No. You heard what John Wallace's thoughts were on it. He said he thought it sucks. And I agree with him. It's terrible. And this just in, this tonight we learned that Butler Xavier likely to join the Catholic 7. They're going to retain the name Big East, which I'm very happy about. It preserves some of our history as Syracuse in the Big East. I'm really pleased that they're going to get that name and not this new conference that has SMU in it.
They'll probably play in the Guard in their tournament. That'll be good just to keep that. As long as the ACC can't do it, I'd rather the Big East do it.
Yeah, I'll follow that conference closely, and I'll be a fan. I'll root for those teams. I can't not. It's just doing it for too long. I will root for Villanova when they play against Georgia Tech, and I will root for St. John's when they play Duke. I can't see myself becoming an ACC fanboy the way I've been a supporter of Big East teams out of conference and in the tournament. It's just going to be a different dynamic, and honestly, I'm not really looking forward to playing in the ACC at all. And that includes going to Cameron or playing at Chapel Hill. I'm not excited about it. I think we're going to go down to play at Duke, and we're going to get screwed by the officials. And we're going to have to take it because we're Yankees. You know what I mean?
Disappointed that Richmond seems to now be on the outs on the Big East. They were one of the on the short list. I don't think they're going to get it.
Yeah, that would be a nice fit, I think. But nonetheless, guys, we've gone late. Thanks again to John Wallace for joining us earlier. I thought that was just a fantastic interview, and we appreciate him coming on and talking to us for so long. And thanks again to you, our listeners and viewers, for joining us on the Upstate Orange podcast. Remember to subscribe to our feed on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or via RSS. You can find us on Facebook by searching Upstate Hoops and on Twitter at HoopsPod. For my co-hosts, Brad Connor and Matt Verkey, and our producer, Jeremy Hunt, I'm Jim Sinacropi. We'll see you back here next week.
Good night.